Greetings, film enthusiasts! Welcome to the FILMSTRIP channel, where I will uncover for you the 152 masterpieces of cinema according to the critics firm Mediafilm. If you can read French and want to explore Mediafilm's website, the link is in the description. If you haven't seen the beginning of the series, you can click here to see the first video about The Birth of a Nation. Here is now the second film on the list, directed by David Wark Griffith in 1916, Intolerance. The film is composed of 4 parallel storylines telling of the consequences of intolerance throughout 4 different moments and places. The first story, the longest, takes place during contemporary times in 1914 in a setting opposing the bourgeoisie and the working class. The old rich Miss Jenkins, co-owner of a factory along with her brother, asks him to proceed to salary cuts for employees, with the intention of using the money for herself. Follows a strike and the arrival of armed strikebreakers. A young man, exiled in the city after the events, is unable to find work and is compelled to mug a poor drunkard. He soon finds himself part of a criminal gang called the Musketeers. He meets a young girl, also exiled after the strikers' massacre. Her father dies, then the young couple decides to get married. The young man decides he's had enough of the life of crime, but his boss frames him. The young man is now in jail for some time, and the girl, now alone, struggles to feed their newborn child. An organization financed by the Jenkins takes the child away from the mother. Out of jail, the young man finds himself fighting off another member of the Musketeers. During the altercation, a friend of his kills the bad guy. Wrongfully accused of the murder, the young man is condemned to the death penalty. A friend finds a message left by the guilty murderess explaining the circumstances of the event. She confesses to the crime, and after a crazy pursuit to obtain the governor's pardon, the young man is finally saved. The second story, the shortest one, takes place 2 millennia ago in Jerusalem. The Pharisees, one of the active Jewish groups in Judea at the time, engage in an open vanity, considering themselves superior to everyone else. Jesus and friends are already on the move. He accumulates miracles and his fame is growing fast. He changes water into wine, and at some point he defends a woman caught in adultery. But he quickly is judged and crucified. The third story takes place in 1572 in Paris and begins in the palace of Charles IX, where we already feel the tensions between the royal family and the Huguenot Protestants. A young brown-eyed girl is courted by Prosper Latour. Both of them are Protestants. Queen Catherine convinces Charles that the Protestants must be exterminated. This same day, Prosper has a bad feeling. Then begins the famous St. Bartholomew's Day massacre. Woken up in a hurry, the girl's family tries to defend their house. The barricades fall, they are attacked, then killed. The fourth story takes place in 1532 BC, at the time of the peaceful Babylonian prince Belshazzar. A strong-willed young woman, clearly attached to her independence, is brought before the king by her brother to oblige her in finding a husband. Empathic to her situation, Belshazzar gives her the choice to marry or not, whatever she wants. Meanwhile, Cyrus's Persian troops are dangerously approaching Babylon. The girl, having sworn allegiance to the prince, participates in the city's defense. After a tiring battle, the Persian invasion is finally pushed back. The great priests, who had predicted the fall of Babylon, intend to keep their social status by betraying the prince. The young women learn of their intentions, then spy on the priests who join the Persians, offering their help. During the last battle, the girl is killed and Babylon falls. The movie ends on a hopeful note, confident that peace will one day triumph throughout the world. After the enormous controversy of racial taste that was provoked by Birth of a Nation, D.W. Griffith has skillfully conceived his answer film, Intolerance, a year later in 1916. It was in this short time that he produced the most ambitious film of his career, and some would argue, of the whole silent era. The success of Birth of a Nation having filled up the company's cash piles, Griffith has at his disposition a considerable amount. Having to reappropriate a great deal of the public by an ideological setback, it is with both ambition and finesse, with freedom and structure, that he conceives this second masterpiece on our list, cementing once again his name in the history books. One of the first words that could come to mind while watching Intolerance is probably ambitious. The most impressive is probably its production scale. Tons and tons of costumes and sets have been used to recreate the 4 eras of the 4 different storylines. The most colossal are certainly the ones in the Babylon segment. Over 16,000 extras have been used during filming. When you see the vast armies during the various war scenes, you can understand how that is. Griffith then once more pushes the boundaries of the epic genre to an almost maniacal level for the time. Inspired by Cabiria, the often mobile camera accentuates even more the size of all these elements, making scenes like this one absolutely stunning. More than being just an eye candy, Intolerance is also original in its very structure. By privileging, as for his preceding film, a very long length, Griffith is able to take 4 separate stories and crisscross them and give them meaning and a common direction. Thus, the stories do not succeed one another, they alternate so that they give the film a structure that breathes and link the whole in a coherent manner on the theme of, yes indeed, intolerance. Several transitions are made through extra-diegetic images of the Eternal Mother rocking a cradle to infinity, linking the segments while symbolizing the timelessness of the theme. The precise editing between the segments allows to attenuate the tone shifts that could have occurred by the fact that the 4 stories belong to completely different genres: gangster film, Bible story, historic drama, and the peplum. Over 50 transitions between the storylines occur during the film, alternating faster and faster, as in a funnel, to arrive at a bittersweet finale in which the hope from one story contrasts with the tragedy of another, ending on an ironic note. One thing we can observe when watching Intolerance is that the use of the close-up for dramatic effects is very present. For example, this wide shot, followed by a close-up on the character's face, starting by showing her alone in her environment, then with a tight framing so that the viewer can feel her loneliness. Also, we can notice the use again of the close-up, but this time by directing our attention on a detail. Then back to a wider shot to show the effect of that detail in the narrative context. An interesting use of the structure that we can see is in a scene like this one, in which the boy sees his father dying in his arms. We then cut to a shot of the factory director, whose decision is the cause of the man's death, then cutting back to show the emotion of the boy. Intolerance certainly has its flaws. The first that comes to mind is that the very short length of the portion in Judea makes the segment appear somewhat artificial. Perhaps the mythical 8-hour-long version of the film might have helped to blend it a bit more with the rest, but then again, would the pace of the whole film have been sustained? We might just never know. Some scenes, taken out of context, may appear overly melodramatic, particularly the ending. Fortunately, the weight of the rest of the film smooths them out a little. Sometimes we could have the impression that Griffith is trying to scream that he's making the greatest film ever conceived. But hey, he certainly isn't the last ambitious filmmaker in the history of cinema. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Orson Welles. One thing that I found to be very interesting is the absence of names for the majority of the protagonists. For example, the dear one, the boy, brown eyes, the mountain girl. They seem to become less of a character and more of an idea, of a value. Even if in the end the profits that Intolerance brought in were quite slim, it is still today recognized for its artistic value. It may be a bit hard to appreciate as it should be by our young eyes from 2017, but it is a film we need to watch to really grasp what it brought to a century of cinema that followed. Thank you very much everyone, I hope you liked the video. If you have suggestions or comments, keep it constructive. Click the like button if you did like the video, and of course click the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel and then be notified each time that I upload a video. I will be back soon for the third film on the list of masterpieces of cinema according to Mediafilm. I put links in the description below to the said list, you can go have a look. Once again, like, subscribe, and share. On that, I will say see you soon for my next video about D.W. Griffith's Broken Blossoms.